anyway, okay, so moving on, we're going to talk about navigating the culture scape. So, what is the culture scape? This is one of my favorite terms that it's a newly coined term by Vishen Lakhiani of Mind Valley. If you're not familiar with him and Mind Valley, please go look it up, okay? If you're here, that means you're going to love that. It's hard to explain exactly what it is. It's an online platform, presence, influencer type company, sort of, that help their goal is to revision how we do everything. Mind Valley. So we're cultivating our mindset, how we live, how we think, how we believe, how we do school, how we parent, how we everything. They're looking to overturn all of the things that we may still be doing that don't make a lot of sense. And that's what the culture scape is. It's those rules and regulations and the culture scape, the culture of where you live. All these things that we believe that are outdated, that may not have made much sense in the first place, but we're just doing what our parents did, doing what our parents say, our grandparents, going down the line and just carrying on those beliefs from there to now. And they might not always be helpful or beneficial, and a lot of the time they're holding us back. And these Vishen calls them rules. Okay, B rules. Rules, and it stands for bullshit rules. And if you start looking at your life and the decisions you've made, chances are you have made some decisions because of the culture scape, instead of following your passions, following what you wanted to do, following your interests, that kind of thing. And a lot of us are subject to this because, I mean, community is important. We're communal beings. We like to live, we have to live together. We're not made to be isolated and solo. And yet, most of us are these days. And which begs the question, if most of us pretty much feel alone anyway, why are we bending to these rules that don't make any sense and doing what other people want us to do rather than what we want to do, right? Some examples of culturescape, maybe culturescape rules, maybe that you have to go to college and choose one of these specifically society approved careers. You can't go off and be an artist. You can't go off to a third world country and feed the hungry. You can't, you you can't be this or that or whatever, whatever you want to be, because you have to go to college and you have to choose one of these pre-approved careers. You can't just go trekking through the Himalayas with a backpack. You have to put form and structure into your life, right? Because that's how you're successful. That you have to you graduate high school, and then you move on to college, and then you major in a career or topic, and then you get a career, buy a house, have a family. This is the path to happiness, right? But most of us take this path because it's what other people want us to do. I know myself, I'm just as guilty. I went to college after high school because that's what was expected of me. I didn't really have a choice. I did, but I didn't, right? It's what was expected of me. I even, a couple of years in, tried to quit and couldn't because of family pressures and whatnot. There was nothing at college I was interested in at all whatsoever. So, and I'm terrible at math, y'all. So I kind of had to, instead of which we can get into a whole Facebook Live video on how we expect kids at 18 to know what they want to do with the rest of their life and choose a career path and start working on that. Like that is, but anyway, um, I went to college because that's what was expected of me. That's what my culturescape had me in, and had to choose something that was at my local community college. So I just decided to major in history because that was what had the least amount of math. And it was a disaster, and I should have not gone. I'm not that type of person. You know, obviously, I'm pretty self motivated to be able to do all of these things, but I'm only self motivated in the things that I like and am interested in. If you try to, I was a terrible student in school. I mean, I made decent grades, but I can't, you can't tell me what to learn about and me be able to focus. I literally can't. I zone out, I daydream, I doodle, I get distracted. I can't. I'll read the same paragraph in a textbook of something that I'm not interested in 8 times because I keep forgetting to pay attention. Can't do it. So I absolutely should not have gone. But our culturescape tells us that these are the rules, these are the paths that we're supposed to follow in order to be successful, in order to be happy, in order to be loved, accepted, blah, 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 whatever. And so we put aside our passions, our interests, our happiness, everything that we're feeling called to do and pursue to choose one of these boxes to be put in, right? And it doesn't bring us happiness. It oftentimes is a huge waste of time. Not that college is always a waste of time for everyone. Okay? That is not it either. We have to we have to take a step back and relook at how we're living our lives in relation to the rules that society and culture has set out for us. And they're going to be different. The culture scape's going to be different depending on where you are. You know, a culture scape here in Alabama is going to be vastly different from one in California, and even different from one in India, which is different from one in China. You know, it just depends on where you are in the world and who lives there and those ancestral beliefs that have been passed down. And, you know, we recently read The Celestine Prophecy. If you have not read this book, I absolutely 2000% recommend you go read it. And it's a really easy read. Okay, so I'm not telling you to like go read a 600 page textbook or anything. It's a super easy read. Um, I read it on my ebook, so or my Kindle, so I don't know if how thick it is, or I would show you, but I would say it's about like that. You know, it's maybe less. It's a really easy read, and it's written in story form too. So, but anyway, I also wrote a series of blog posts on this book, like nine, nine blog posts on this book because I love it so much and there's so much information in it. But anyway, um, it's broken down into 9 insights. And the second insight is about seeing history as a whole and understanding our ancestors' day to day lives and what they went through, what life was like for them, and how that formed their beliefs, the things they struggled with. And if you really start looking at history as a whole, you can understand where some of these rules came to be and came up and why they worked at one point in time but don't work anymore. And you know, our world changes so quickly, so drastically, especially now. They say time is speeding up in the sense that we are developing more and more, faster and faster, especially when it comes to technology and advancements in science. So, our but we, as biological beings, have a hard time evolving that quickly, right? We're the same humans that were around 100 years ago, more or less, but the world that we live in with the technology, sit around and think about what the world looked like in 1920. Just go ahead and do it for a second. No screens, no internet. I think we barely had we had electricity, and that was about it, right? Did every home even have electricity? I don't know. Did they? I know my dad. Okay, my dad, who was born in '69. His grandparents didn't have running water, so they still had like outhouses and stuff, and he had to take baths in a wash tub, right? Like, think about that for a second, and how not that long ago the world was, I mean, what's more than a 360 complete difference? It was a complete different space. But our belief systems and our mind haven't kept up with the evolving world. So things don't work like they used to, right? Just another example is the technology and the comforts and luxuries of life that are more common now than they were then have isolated us. We've we used to live in families, in groups, in communities, with your neighbors and your relatives all pitching in, helping one another. Um, Everything was, life was a group team game, team sport. There you go. Team sport. And now we've sectioned ourselves off into nuclear families that, I've been living in this house for, say, my son's like 4 or 5 years now. Like four and a half. Anyway, and I've never had a real conversation with my neighbors, and they're pretty close neighbors. I could kick a rock and hit a couple. I can hit their yard at least. And I have one, two, three, four, five. So we're surrounded by people, and like I might wave here and there, but a couple of them I've literally never talked to, not once. And that's not how we used to be. That's not how we were designed to be. We evolved in a community setting. So, now that we're all sectioned off, all of us are lonely and depressed and anxious and crumbling under the pressures and stresses of everyday life. And this makes us feel about ourselves like really bad. It makes us feel really bad about ourselves because we're like, man, I can't even handle regular day to day stuff. Like, what is wrong with me? Just calm down and take it one thing at a time. Why is this such a big deal? But we were never made to be constantly turned on and bombarded with all of the things all of the time. Life was simpler. We had our friends, family, and neighbors to if the kids were driving us absolutely insane and they had been needy all day and you haven't been able to sit down for 10 minutes and you feel your stress levels rising, or whatever, then it probably didn't even get to that point. You could just be like, look, kid, honey, baby, please go next door and see what such and such is doing. Please go talk to such and such. Please go over there and play with that kid, your cousin, whatever. And we don't have that option anymore. They say it takes a village, but most of us don't have access to our villages anymore. And that's just one example. Um, Everybody pitched in chopping the wood, but we're constantly looking at screens and judging and comparing, and but while we're judging and comparing, we still have this culturescape rules in the back of our head that we're trying to navigate life by. Somebody set us down and we're like, this is the path that you take in life to gain success, comforts, money, the family, happiness, whatever, whatever, whatever. And so instead of thinking for ourselves and trying to figure out what makes us happy, what is our passions, what do we want to do, we're just got in line and followed the rest of the pack because, it's important for us to feel accepted because in a community setting, that's how you survive is if the community accepts you and likes you, then they help you live because that's, where we evolved at. But now we don't have to have their approval. And honestly, the more we pursue what makes us happy and content, the more we will naturally gain others' approval simply because we're happier and more fun to be around. And when you're happier and more fun to be around, people want to be around you and they like being around you. But if you're miserable and anxious and just a mess all the time, I am. And people don't want to be around that. They don't, and it's not great, but it's just a fact that people are attracted to high energy, happy vibes and kind of go away from the sad, depressive vibes. Is that great? No, but that's how people work and what they do. And another thing is when you are unapologetically 100% genuine and yourself, people admire that because they're like, man, I wish I could just not care what others think and just do what makes me happy. Like secretly, I absolutely want to dye my hair purple. Like I think that is the coolest thing, but we don't. Some of us do, of course, but we admire those people who are doing the thing that we wish that we could do, right? And it all comes back to what's different between you and them is that they acted and decided to pursue their passions, their interests, their likes, despite what other people were saying. Okay. So once we're aware of this culturescape and how things are working and how things have changed and how things aren't necessarily as true as they used to be, before we had all of these opportunities available to us at every turn, there wasn't a whole lot going on. So yeah, you just got married, had some kids, and that was just life. You just lived. That was it. You just lived. There was no extra. There was nothing extra you had to do. There was nothing extra that you wanted to really do in a lot of cases because everything was just about living, just about surviving. But we've progressed past that to where we don't have to just get a family and raise a family if that's not what we want to do, if that's not what we feel called to do. We're living longer as, you know, people. And so we have more time to explore the world around us and we have more resources and availability to see what else is out there in the world. And a lot of us have trouble figuring out what we want to do with life, especially as we're moving into the college area, because we've only seen at that point in our lives a fraction of what the world has to offer. So when you've only seen a fraction of what the world has to offer, there's no way to know that the thing that you were born to do, the thing that you were placed on this planet to do, is actually over there waiting for you to figure out that it even exists, right? So once you can just acknowledge and know that the culture scape exists, it becomes a lot easier to break it down and understand that people are operating under these belief systems that make no sense, that they don't question, because we're taught not to question. Things just are the way they are. But why? Just because they are. So a lot of us, some of us didn't myself included, didn't take that as face value and did continue to question and did continue to look for different, better ways. I never could understand why people were doing this when this was the obviously better choice. Like that never made sense to me. And but when now that we have the opportunities to think like that, we have the opportunities to choose. Do we want to continue living life like our parents, like our grandparents, like society has, or do we want to make the conscious decision to propel ourselves in evolution and look at the world in contrast to who we are, and how can we make decisions that benefit us as the individual the most to find happiness, contentment, peace, passion, all of those things, to build the life that we want, that's going to make us happy despite what culture and society has said is the right way to do. For example, I really want to get rid of all my furniture and just fill the place with pillows and hammocks. And you know what? If I had been conscious 5 years ago of the culturescape and how everything works belief wise and how we make decisions, then that's probably what I would have tried to convince my husband to do. Right now, he's not into it, but maybe I'm still hopeful eventually. I don't know if we'll probably use these ones out and then just get another hammock next time. But if that's what you want to do, if that's what makes you happy, then you do it. We bought furniture to entertain and then never entertain. So don't, once I realized that I had been living my life, decorating my house, for example, for people who didn't pay my bills, didn't really emotionally, weren't emotionally available, um, didn't just, whatever. I started taking a different approach to things, and, and I'm a lot happier about it. I'm a lot happier about it. It makes you happy when you're doing things for you. And there's really no reason that you're doing things for them other than that's just the way things are. And you have the choice. You have the choice to choose something different. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know what you wish you could do that has been holding you back. And look for the blog post Thursday.